Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, guys. This is the final nail in the coffin for the Salafi Aqeedah. Okay? And what is this matter? It is the matter about eternal hell. Sheikh Ibn Taymiyah, he held this position that hell is not eternal. Okay? He believed this. Hell is not eternal. Now, you'll be like, can't the Salafis just disagree with him on this issue? My point, the argument I want to make in this video and maybe other ones is that they cannot. It's either they follow him on this position or they reject his methodology. Why? Why am I saying this? Because he applied the exact same methodology or the same style of approach to the other topics that we have been discussing. He applied that same thing here. So he's not being inconsistent on his principle. His principle is consistent here. So if you are going to reject him, you have to show where in his principle is not being consistent. Like, you can actually do this for other attributes, like for instance, on the issue of nuzul. I have some people that have argued that Ibn Taymiyah was not consistent with his principle. Even in some of the papers by Farid Suleiman and the other ones, they can show you some places where he wasn't consistent. But not on the issue of eternal hell. He was consistent there with his methodology. So, in my own opinion, it is the methodology that is problematic. It is the methodology that leads you to such conclusions. In fact, the places where he was not consistent is the place where he agreed with us. Do you understand? Like, on the issue of nuzul or the other ones, when you ask them, is nuzul translocation? It's not. They deny the apparent meaning. So, wherever Ibn Taymiyyah is not consistent, they agree with us. That's what I'm telling you now. They agree with us. Most of the places where he wasn't consistent is not really problematic. It is the place where he was consistent that is always problematic. Like in the issue of sifat, khabariyah and ainiyah, all those sifat. And this issue of eternal hell, which he actually held. Bro, it is true. It's not just a quote that was ascribed to him. Like, there's a quote, one line from Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah, we don't know where it came from. He wrote an entire book on this issue. Okay? He wrote a book. We are not referring to some fringe, maybe he just felt like that. He wrote a book and he defended it. He defended the position. He made arguments from Quran, Sunnah, the Salaf, and what's it called? Logical arguments that is like fitrah. He used everything in this argument. He used fitrah, he used everything, bro, to make his case that hell cannot be eternal. So it is you, if you're a Taymiyyah Salafi, you have to make a video or show where he wasn't being consistent with his methodology. That's what you have to do. Whereas we can make a case that it was consistent, and because we all agree that hell is eternal, we can say that it is his methodology that led him there, and therefore you should reject his position on Sifat. That is the thing I will talk about in maybe other videos. But before we go, let me just explain to you some of the things about this eternal hell thing. There's something called universalism. Go and read the top scholars on Ibn Taymiyah in the academia world. You will see like this. They said he believed in this. He believed in universalism. Now let me tell you, what is universalism? Universalism is the idea that no one will remain in hell for eternity. They will be saved eventually. Everyone will be saved and be in Jannah. Whoever you are, whatever being you are, even Shaitan, you will be saved and be in heaven eventually. Okay? Now, hopeful universalism is not the same thing as universalism. Let me tell you what I'm saying here. Hopeful universalism is when you say, maybe God will save everybody. I don't know. Allahu Alam. Maybe God will save everybody. God can decide. You see, that is not what Ibn Taymiyyah is saying. Hopeful universalism is that you are not even sure, even though this is problematic too, but at least it's not universalism. Universalism is when you bring in concepts like wisdom, justice, and mercy. So when you bring out this kind of concept, you are saying any being. When you say that, there's no wisdom. If you say that, what's it called? Wisdom. If you bring in wisdom or mercy or justice, you are saying any being that punishes people for eternity, that being is not just. That being does not have wisdom. And that being, what's it called? Doesn't have mercy. That is what you're saying. That is why Sheikh Ibn Taymiyah and Ibn Qayyim, their position is actual universalism. It's not just some hopeful thing, because they use those arguments. So they will bring proofs from the Quran that talks about God's mercy encompassing everything, or they'll bring verses from the Quran that talked about God's mercy preceding His wrath, or something like that. So they'll bring those verses and they will show you that, see, we are the ones actually following the scripture here. This is the lead from the Quran, right? They even have hadith from Omar, but the point is that they reinterpret those verses to support their position. That's what they do. But I'm not even going to go into that. The point I'm showing you here is that in the Quran, it's just clear, man. It's clear cut that they believe that there will be eternal hell. Sheikh Ibn Taymiyah, he used his exact same methodology to disprove this idea. See, if you have been convinced by his argument before, I fail to understand how you are not convinced by this argument. You are using some other principle that is not from him. I'm telling you, because the same way of approach that he's been consistent and he used that same method and he showed you, and now you're rejecting it, then you should question the other ones too. You should question the other position that he held. If you don't question that, then you don't understand how this works. I'm telling you, because take for instance, in his writing he talked about that there is no wisdom. If God is punishing somebody for eternity, there's no wisdom behind it. He said it. There's no wisdom behind this. Now you'll be like, what wisdom is he talking about? He's talking about the wisdom that we human beings can understand. It's not, look at this. He made a reply on Jaham ibn Safwan, right? Where Jaham was talking about a man, he saw a man, a leper that was suffering, and he's like, no God that is what's it called? No merciful God can create something like this, or something like that. That God acts from His will, it's not from His wisdom, or something like that. Then Sheikh Ibn Taymiyah said, you see, this man that is suffering, you are the one, is your ignorance. See, he was not a skeptical theist. The skeptical theist position on this issue is to say that we might not know the wisdom behind it, but there is a wisdom. That is the position of some Maturidis, by the way. That, you see, the wisdom behind suffering in this world, or suffering in the eternal hell, we human beings, we may not understand it, but there is a wisdom, God knows it. That is not their position. That is not the position of Ibn Taymiyah and Ibn Qayyim. Even though, by the way, according to John Hoover, Ibn Taymiyah later left this, Ibn Qayyim later abandoned this position, but not Ibn Taymiyah. Now, Ibn Taymiyah's position is not skeptical theism. He used skeptical theism for, let's say, someone suffering in this world. And even, by the way, it's not even skeptical theism, if you are being fair. Because he said, you see, when you see a man suffering, that man is actually benefiting something. Maybe that punishment is for him, he will become good. We can understand why the suffering might be actually good for him, because it's helping him in one way or the other. It's making him stronger, you know. But eternal hell, Sheikh Ibn Taymiyah, he said, I fail to see the wisdom behind this. Therefore, there is no wisdom behind it. Therefore, he rejects it. You see, he's bringing, and from in my own, the link that I want to make between this is that his approach is human-centric. Anything that is not rationally discernible to a human being, he will reject it. And he will blame the revelation for it. He will say, I cannot understand this wisdom. Anyhow, like I can even understand someone suffering in this world temporarily. But eternal punishment that is not for purification. He believes punishment is for purifying you. So if there's a punishment that is not for purifying you, like the eternal one, he said, and the revelation comes to tell us about this, there is no wisdom, we cannot understand it, therefore he rejects it. This is the same approach he used in the issue of Sifat, in my own opinion. Is this same approach of, what is the scripture saying when it says yet? What does the scripture say when it says yet? If the scripture is not saying anything, are you saying the prophet didn't teach us? Are you saying Allah didn't communicate with us? Therefore we reject it. Therefore we need to know the meaning of hand. We need to know the meaning of hand. You cannot do tafid al-mana. We need to know the meaning. If you don't know the meaning, then the revelation is not telling us something. That is the argument, right? Same thing here. Wisdom. What is this wisdom? If you Salafi Taymiyyan and you think you affirm eternal hell, he will ask you, what is the wisdom? And if you cannot provide the wisdom, he will say, so what did the scripture tell us about this? the scripture is not telling us anything, not giving us any information, it's not rationally discernible, is against even what we deem as justice, therefore we cannot accept this. You are the one that is like, you are like following the Asharis, like Tafwid al-Mana, because the wisdom, you don't even know the wisdom. What is the wisdom of your Taymiyah Salafi? By the way, the Asharis, they say we don't know the wisdom, God's will. They say God's will. Them, they already know this. They already know. Salafis, Asharis, they already know this, right, guys? And I told you, I'm more of an Ashari because of these kind of issues of qadar, of eternal punishment, than the issue of sifat even. So here, I can see when somebody is like, I can see your principle if you come to this matter. If you're a Taymiyyan Salafi and you believe in eternal hell, and I ask you what is the wisdom, and you say you don't know it, you consign that wisdom to God. That's what you're doing. You're like, oh, I don't know the wisdom. God knows it. Allahu Alam. Why can't someone do that for the issue of sifat? All the arguments you now bring there, all the arguments of, hey, if you say you're consigning the meaning of something to God, are you saying the revelation didn't give us information? The Prophet didn't explain it? Okay, did the Prophet explain the wisdom of eternal hell to you? Come and tell us. Or that's what Sheikh Ibn Taymiyah will ask you, and you cannot answer it. You end up consigning the meaning to God, the wisdom. Even that's what the Maturidi's that even add on to some wisdom, they consign that to God. If you do that, that is exactly somewhat what the Asharis and the Maturidis do on the issue of sifat. Those sifats that is problematic in Tashabih, they consign that to God. So this video, I don't even know if it's good or not, by the way, guys. I'm still forming the argument. I've not formed it fully yet, because I'm still reading. I want to see I've read some writings about on Salafis when they attack Tafwid al-Mana and Salafi and Ashari Ta'wil. I want to see how they approach it, because that's their method. Once you see how they attack Tafwid al-Mana or Ta'wil, if there's someone out there that is probably smarter than me, guys, go and check this. Go and look into this. You can find their methodology. Maybe because I'm actually lazy these days, I don't even want to like do too much. But the thing is that you've seen the argument I've made, that the same way they attack you when you do Tafwid al-Mana or Ta'wil, your Ta'wil, they will say your Ta'wil, you are going away from the apparent meaning of the text, or from the apparent thing that we know. And your, what's it called, your Tafwid al-Mana, you are saying the scripture is not telling us anything because you are consigning the meaning to God. You cannot do that. They even think this is worse. This is worse than Ta'wil. If you consign the meaning to God, it's actually worse than Ta'wil, according to them, because you are accusing the Prophet and God not telling us anything in the scripture. The same way, on the issue of the wisdom behind eternal damnation, eternal punishment, Sheikh Ibn Taymiyah, he will ask you, what is this wisdom? Do we know it? Is there any qiyas? Is there any way we can even know anything about it? You cannot give him any answer, and that's why he's consistent and he rejects it. And you affirm it. Therefore, you are not consistent. That's my argument. Anyway, let's not make this video too long. See you guys later. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bye bye.